Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for March Comes In Like a Lion, chapter 183. When we last left our heroes, Nikaido was not happy about the route Rei was taking the match down. He's also critical of this kind of, fidgetiness that Rei was exhibiting. Uh, Particularly, he described it like a grade schooler. And he also sort of asserted his desire, his refusal of taking Kiriyama's bait. That he was not going to play the match Kiriyama wanted. He was going to play the match that he wanted. Um, and then we get this really interesting bit at the end where, going back to that fidgetiness, Nikaido starts to kind of hypothesize that a lot of Rei's changes, the reason he's no longer the kind of calm, collected child he was, is because of, Nikaido puts it as like getting a girlfriend, but it's more specifically spending time with the Kawamotos at all has kind of helped him get out of his shell. And Nikaido mourns that. Mourns the, as he puts it, the loss of the greatest rival he's ever had on this adventure. So I don't, which, we know that Rei is a much better off person for knowing the Kawamotos than he was beforehand, which kind of puts Nikaido in a bit of a negative light, and I'm really curious where Umino is going with that plotline. So let's see where she takes us this time. Chapter 183, Path Part 2. And our picture is just of an empty street with shops on both sides. Seeing where a path goes when it turns can sometimes make for a nice adventure. Also, the next volume is coming out in about 3 months, so that doesn't really help anything for English viewers. But if you are in Japan and for some reason watching an English reaction to this manga, pick it up, I guess. Anyway, we open during the game, during the match. Kiriyama, the greatest good fortune I've received in my life, has been existing in the same era as you. Stuff like running, playing with classmates, and eating things I like. I gave up on all of those. The inside of my mind was my whole life. And any time I felt like I was being buried by that why me feeling, when I looked to my side, you were always there. So I'm guessing this chapter is going to be big, kind of very much exploring those feelings that were brought up at the end of last chapter. And as a diehard Nikaido fan, I am more than happy for this. Even if it's sort of a not quite positive view of Nikaido. Anyway, I no longer even had the recourse of surrendering to despair. With you next to me, with those pitch dark eyes silently focused wholeheartedly on moving forward, no matter what nightmarish path I was going down, I was able to grin and bear it 30% more. And we see this image of Nikaido watching Rei study, Nikaido in his wheelchair with his plaque, and Rei with his trophy. And another Nikaido Rei match. Nikaido was sweating. He's clearly going through heat stroke or something, or heat exhaustion, one of the two. I don't quite know the difference. I recently saw an infographic on the difference. Anyway, that's a tangent. But he's sweating, he's biting his handkerchief. I was able to grin and bear it 30% more. And we have this image of a road in a desolate woods. Fate isn't fair, and I turn my uncontrollable anger toward that unfairness into an insane amount of energy, changing the story to be, this route was the right choice. That is the only means of fighting back that humans have. And we see this image of a book that then cuts to Nikaido in a hospital bed hooked up to an IV after having passed out, I guess. Sitting on that bed, unable to even lift up my arms, I wheezed that I would take this whole shitty premise and make it into foreshadowing that would pay off down the line. So this is a bit of a personal thing, but I frequently use narrative terminology to describe my life, just like Nikaido does, as we're kind of seeing here. So I've always been a Nikaido fan, and seeing both that kind of shared commonality and the sort of y'all know I'm a sucker for some good shonen emotions, and the series is not really big on shonen emotions, given that its protagonist is it's a story of Rei kind of overcoming his depression. But Nikaido is much closer to the shonen mold, and I do enjoy that. Anyway, we have this image of it's kind of like the cliff from the end of last chapter, though Nikaido is now in like a suit and tie and not the cowboy outfit from last chapter. But his inner monologue continues. I've already paid the price. What's there to be afraid of now? I'm going to go procure greater strength, I'd say, as I plunged into that chaos again and again. You're the same way, right? But despite that, and we see Nikaido at the bottom of the cliff looking up, and there is Rei and Hina on the cliff, as Rei has sort of gone a different path. By wrapping yourself in that gentle warmth, do you not care if you lose that brilliant shine you have as like a flash of lightning? So yeah, we're seeing... let me finish this page first. I kind of read a bit of it just now. It's such a waste! So much a waste! I don't get how you could do that! If it were me, if I were in your place, I would never let go of it! Of that giant engine that has pain for gasoline! So yeah, this is distinctly unhealthy. I don't think that really needs to be clarified. It's unhealthy. The idea of, Nikaido's shock and almost anger that Rei is taking care of himself at the expense of his shogi skills is horrifying to Nikaido. The idea that, like, especially as this flashback kind of goes in, Nikaido doesn't quite bring up exactly what happened to Rei. I assume he knows. I'm like 99% sure Nikaido knows about Rei's past, but he doesn't bring it up. But there is that shared pain that they have put into shogi, and so in Nikaido's mind, it's that pain that's giving him strength. As he says on page 4, the pain is foreshadowing that would pay off down the line, and I think he assumed Rei was the same way. And so if Rei kind of, casts off that pain for healing, if Rei heals emotionally, he is no longer using his pain to fuel his shogi. I'm curious if there's also the fact that, due to the very different natures of their pain, Nikaido can't do that. Nikaido's pain is a physical condition. He can't just make friends and get a girlfriend and overcome his illness in quite the same way that Rei can. And so that's a bit of a betrayal, I think, in Nikaido's eyes. But yeah, let's continue. And we see Nikaido kind of kneeling at the shogi board in front of this image of like a goddess, I think. Oh yeah, there's goddess right there. If right now a goddess appeared in front of my eyes and said, "If you wish, I shall take all the illness from your body. If it were me, I'd..." And Nikaido, he stops. He's clearly about to say that he'd keep the pain because it fuels his power or whatever. But he realizes, huh? And I love like the face he's making. It's the same face he made when Rei went for the Central Hisha back in 181. I'd take it! Yes, I'll take the recovery. I'm answering 0.00001 seconds. Honestly, I'd probably say yes, please, before she even finished speaking. Okay, completely different route than where I thought we were going. I thought that maybe Nikaido would eventually reach this point after like several chapters of this match. But no, he's realizing just in the moment, as he lets the thought play out, that he was wrong to sort of be bitter at Rei at all, and that Rei should absolutely prioritize his healing over his art. I'm not sure if art is the right word for shogi. People who are more familiar, and you call like acting or painting or singing or something like that in art. I'm not sure if shogi is quite the same way in its terminology. Anyway, using the suffering from my illness as a spring. If I were cured, I wouldn't need any goddamn spring. If you can't win without some sort of springboard, then you just haven't got much talent. Even without that spring, I search for every last way to improve that's out there, and go full force on a different route as I make my way to success. You better not underestimate how obsessive I can be. So yeah, there's this bit here about you just haven't got much talent that feels a little not quite true or not quite fair, I guess, to himself. Like, it's a little bit self-deprecating. He needs the spring. using the suffering from my illness as a spring. And then if you can't win without some sort of springboard, then you just haven't got much talent. Kind of implies that Nikaido sees himself as talentless, in an unhealthy sort of way. Um, but yeah, he's kind of like, and though we're still seeing that kind of split from Nikaido and Rei, because Rei, in at least in Nikaido's mind, has sort of wandered off the path of shogi because of Hina. Um, Whereas, because, the Kawamotos have sort of saved him from himself, and now he's a much healthier human being. And whereas Nikaido said that the same thing would happen to me, I would go full on into shogi. Rei is not doing that. He is, making relationships with the Kawamotos. And I'm curious if Nikaido is still going to kind of turn on Rei as a result of that difference. But after all of that, Nikaido stops, and it's a similar trick that Umino pulled off last chapter, as we have this whole kind of super fast speech, and then everything slows down, as Nikaido reaches another new revelation. Oh wait, I see. And he looks up at Rei. So that's it, huh, Kiriyama? You started searching, didn't you? And we see Rei like kind of adjusting his glasses and like scratching his head, with every ounce of your mind and body, to find a different route. You finally reached it, huh? The place that matches your name. The starting line where it all begins. And we see Rei's like morphs into his younger self there. Anyway, let's look at this last page. Because I've been saying this for a long time. Probably since like New Year's, I think. But it feels like the series is ending. Not immediately, not like in the next 5 chapters or anything, but the end of this tournament, because the tournament ends if Rei makes it all the way, he gets to fight Soya, right? Meijin. And that's a good capstone for the shogi plot. The Rei's mental health plot is kind of wrapping up. The lineup Rei has to fight is very, Nikaido and then Shimada, and then I think Soya. And then we have this bit here. You finally reached it, huh? That just feels like, Nikaido acknowledging that Rei has reached the end of his character arc. That's what it feels like to me. So yeah, that's the end of the chapter. The place that matches your name, the starting line where it all begins. So does Kiriyama mean something in Japanese that would make this line make sense? Because in case you weren't aware, do not speak Japanese at all. And so Kiriyama or Rei could mean something that kind of gives clarity to Nikaido's last line there. Anyway, I want to talk about these last 2 pages in context of, once again, I was wrong about Nikaido. He is constantly proving himself better than I'm taking him for, over and over and over again. As I figured he might possibly be bitter that Rei is focusing on his relationship over shogi, but here he kind of acknowledges it. That he had gone a different route. He searched for the different route, and I think that he sees Rei's success as coming from his healthier relationships. I think that's what's going on in those last 2 pages. There is the bit about I'm a little bit confused still about the image of Rei as his younger self kind of appearing in front of Nikaido. I'm not quite sure what Umino's going for there. Beyond this line about the starting line where it all begins, but again, that's tied up in Rei's name, and I don't quite get the reference there. So there's some bits in the ending. Like, I wish there was a translator note here, in these last two lines. But anyway, this was a great chapter. Y'all know I love Nikaido. I love my boy, and I think this is really like the first Nikaido-centric arc we've had since I started reviewing March. I started like near the end of the Nomidome match, and then Nikaido's just been kind of not there since that happened, or earlier than that. And I'm more than happy to have him back in my life because he's just a pure soul. And every time I think he might be developing out of being a pure soul, Umino is like, no, he's a pure boy, and he loves his friends, even when he sort of, is shaken out of it for a sec. He kind of realizes the error of his ways, and he's just the literal best. He is just the best, and I love him, and that's it. I love Nikaido, and he deserves the world, and I hope he gets it. Even if he's going to lose this match, which I'm sorry, but I think he's going to lose. Anyway, good fucking Nikaido character work done here. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen next. Clearly it's going to be focused on Rei and Nikaido, but I don't know if there's going to be any more character work for Nikaido, or if it's going to be like, this is the end of that little bit of introspection that's this entire chapter, and most of last chapter. I just don't know. The next chapter is the 4th Friday of July, which is 4 weeks from now. So it's going to be a bit of a long wait. But yeah, I'm just happy for as much time with my boy as we possibly can. Because it's just good shit. It's just good shit this month. So I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. Do whatever makes you happy. And remember, your life is your own. Okay, bye.